Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Sometimes the general conference talk really sticks with you.
It really does.
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
For sure. Elder Bednar's message in the space of not many years,
Yeah.
it definitely got people thinking, and for good reason.
Right. He's drawing on the Book of Mormon, which always gets me thinking, but what's really fascinating is how relevant this message about ancient civilizations feels to us right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you with me?
It's subtle.
Mm.
But Elder Bednar takes us to a very specific time of the Book of Helaman. The Nephites are expecting the birth of Jesus Christ, right?
Wait.
So you'd think it'd be this era of peace and excitement.
Yeah, like the calm before the
Yeah.
but that's not what's happening at all, is it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
Instead, the Nephites are on the brink of a total meltdown. And that's what I find so powerful about the title of this talk, In the Space of Not Many Years.
Hmm.
It highlights how quickly things can shift, how a righteous society can go completely off the rails within a generation.
It's almost like a warning, isn't it? Like, wake up, this could happen to any of us.
Absolutely.
But here's where it gets even more intriguing. While the Nephites are falling apart, the Lamanites, who we usually think of as the bad guys in these stories,
Right.
they're experiencing this incredible spiritual revival.
It's a complete swap.
Yeah.
They switch roles, and Elder Bednar really leans into that contrast. It's like he's asking us, who are you in this story? Are you on the path of the Nephites, or are you embracing the Lamanite approach? And that question, who are we in this story? It leads to an even deeper point that I think Elder Bednar is making.
Right.
What caused the Nephites to stumble so dramatically?
Yeah.
It wasn't just one bad choice or even a string of them.
Yeah.
It gets at something much more, I don't know, a little more insidious.
Okay.
Prosperity.
Yeah, that's interesting. We don't often think of prosperity as a bad thing.
Right.
Good
It's
point.
almost like we've been conditioned to see it as the ultimate goal.
Right.
But Elder Bednar's message is this powerful reminder that prosperity can be a bit of a Trojan horse. It can make us vulnerable in ways we don't even realize.
He uses such a striking image to describe this when he talks about it being this potent mixture that can poison even the most righteous people.
Yeah.
It's almost like too much of a good thing can become toxic if we're not careful.
Exactly. And it's not about demonizing wealth or success or anything like that, but it's about recognizing the subtle ways that it can shift our priorities, our desires, even our hearts.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if we're so caught up in chasing the American dream, the big house, the fancy car, the picture-perfect life, that we lost sight of what truly matters.
Right.
Have we become the modern-day Nephites without even realizing it?
That's the question I think Elder Bednar is prompting us to ask.
Right.
And this is where I think the conversation takes another turn. It's not just about wealth itself, right? Elder Bednar points out that prosperity often goes hand in hand with a different kind of danger.
Pride.
Okay, so prosperity can lead to pride.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that actually play out in our lives? What does
Okay.
that look like? Well, Elder Bednar doesn't just talk about pride in a general sense.
Right.
He gets really specific. Almost like he's holding up a mirror to the Nephites and saying, does this sound familiar?
Yeah.
You know?
Some of the things he lists are pretty intense,
Yeah.
like mocking sacred things, rejecting prophets. It's almost hard to believe people who considered themselves righteous could fall into those traps.
Yeah, it's a powerful illustration of how subtle pride can be.
Mm.
And it seems to all stem from this inward focus that pride creates.
Yeah.
Elder Bednar talks about how pride blinds us, essentially.
Really blinded by pride.
Yeah.
Yeah, we become so focused on ourselves, our own desires, our achievements, even our own righteousness, that we lose sight of Christ, of others, of what really matters.
It's like we get trapped in our own little echo chambers,
Mm.
and we're unable to see beyond our own limited perspectives.
Yeah.
It made me think about that quote from Samuel the Lamanite.
Mm-hmm.
He warned about seeking happiness in the wrong places.
Oh, yeah.
And how often do we do that?
All the time, right? We chase after these things that promise fulfillment, wealth, status, approval. Right.
But they ultimately leave us empty.
And that's where I think the Lamanites offer such a powerful counter-narrative.
Okay.
While the Nephites are spiraling into pride and blindness, they're experiencing a complete turnaround.
Right.
They're embracing humility, faith, repentance, the simple but profound principles of the gospel.
Yeah, it's like they cut through all the noise and got back to basics.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's incredible is how quickly their society transforms.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They go from being known for wickedness to exceeding the Nephites in righteousness.
Yeah, it's a total 180.
So we've got the Nephites who let prosperity and pride lead them to spiritual ruin. And then we have the Lamanites who found strength and righteousness through humility and faith. What a stark contrast.
Definitely.
But Elder Bednar doesn't just leave us there, does he?
No, he doesn't. He takes it a step further. He talks about this idea of apostasy.
Okay.
And I think it's actually quite reassuring when you understand the distinction that he's making.
Okay.
He talks about institutional apostasy, which is this idea of the church as a whole falling away. Right.
But he's very clear that that's not going to happen.
Right. The church will endure.
Right. So then what kind of apostasy are we talking about?
Exactly.
We're talking about individual apostasy, that slow, almost imperceptible drift that we can experience as individuals when we let pride take root in our hearts.
Yeah.
And it's so subtle, so gradual, that we might not even realize it's happening. That's what makes it so dangerous.
And he gives us a warning sign, right? He says if you think you're immune to pride, that's a big red flag.
It's like the people who need to hear the message the most are often the ones who tune it out.
Exactly. So how do we guard against that? How do we cultivate genuine humility in a world that constantly tells us to strive for more, to be better, to climb higher?
It's a question we all grapple with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the question I think Elder Bednar ultimately leaves us pondering.
Yeah. It's a question worth sitting with. So for all of you deep divers out there, here's your challenge this week. Think about the Nephites and the Lamanites. Which path do you see reflected in your own life? And what's one small step you can take today to choose humility over pride? It's a lifelong journey, but even those small steps can make a world of difference. Until next time, keep diving deep.